afternoon, everybody. I'm Dan King with Elevánt Wealth here for March's Elevánt Insights. Grateful to have you on board. I always get a little bit reflective when I get close to March 15th. Had a couple months of, the new goals and aspirations, and spring's just around the corner. So I wanted to take time and just look at what's going on just briefly within the markets. And I just want to share something real quickly with you, maybe to give you a little bit of perspective on that. I started in this business in the fall of 1994. And so we go back to this time 30 years ago, approximately January of 1995. The Dow Jones was at 3,800. S&P was at 459. We've had days where we've lost that many points on the Dow or on the S&P. And as we go forward from 2019-95, we've had all sorts of reasons why we should have just crawled back into a hole and not been invested. In 1995, we had the Oklahoma City bombings, budget crises in 96. Y2K was all over everybody's minds in 1999. Of course, we had the dot-com bubble burst in 2000, September 11th of 2001. List goes on and on. Each year, there's been some reason why we should not have invested. In 2016, the issue was Brexit and some new guy called President Trump. That was a big concern for everybody back in 2016. If we fast forward until January of this year, so again, the Dow Jones was at 3,800. Beginning this year, the Dow Jones was at 42,544. The point I just want to make is no matter what's going on in the marketplace, we have growth and the market continues to move forward. And so as we look at things, we're always going to be focused on your particular situation and making sure that what we're doing is appropriate for you, but also keep in mind that we get a lot of interaction from markets that are only temporary and emotional, and that as we look things on a period just this last 30 years, we've had this incredible raise in all those marketplaces. Sorry for taking too much time, Brian. I'm going to go ahead and turn the time to you to introduce our guest speaker for this month.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks. Is this the thing you were trying to share, Dan? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, that was it, Brian.
Okay. So just to come full circle on that, now that you can see it, the Dow Jones 3834, as of today, it's at 41,000, almost 400. The S&P 17,700. The S&P, sorry, that's NASDAQ, and then the S&P is at 5,600. So like Dan said, lots of reasons not to invest in that time period, but over time, it certainly has been wildly profitable. Let me stop sharing here. All right, so I'm going to introduce our guest today, and this is an opportunity for me to introduce a guest that it comes from more of a personal connection in my life, which is super fun. So Lance and I have known each other since 19, 20, 21 years old. We had some formative experiences up in Canada together, where we had the opportunity to serve a mission for our church, and we were doing that together. And I'll tell you, Lance was just as inspirational back in that time as he is today. And he has quite the story of, coming back into the rat race of corporate America and really seeking for what his passion is, and making a major life change into the things that he cares the most about, in trying to make a difference in this world. And I'm sure he'll tell you a little bit of that story. But the reason why we wanted to bring Lance on our webinar today is we all know that wealth is not wealth without our health, right? Case in point, if I gave you $20 million today, but you had to die tomorrow, would you take it? Would it be worth it? We all know the answer to that, right? Would you trade places with Warren Buffett today? No. Would he change places with you? Yes, right? What we have is time, and that is the most valuable asset that all of us own because we can use our time intentionally to improve ourselves, to um, to heal old wounds and relationships, to expand relationships or meet new people or develop new hobbies, spend more time with family. You know, that our time is what allows us to do that. And so, and our health is what gives us our time in a lot of senses outside of crazy accidents and whatnot. And so, I have actually taken a huge interest in the last month or two in leaning into my own personal health and trying to make an intentional focus on being who and what I want to be, not just from a business perspective or being a father or a husband, but also from a health perspective to show up for myself in those spaces. And so Lance and I have been spending a lot of time together, um, texting and over the phone and on webinars as he's helping me in my fitness journey to be more intentional about my day to day. And so Lance, I'm skipping over your fancy credentials. You can talk about that, but we just really appreciate you being here and the life-changing work that you do. And so we'll turn a little time over to Lance, and he's going to jump into his presentation. Feel free to share your screen, and thanks for being with us.
Brian and Dan, thank you so much. It is an absolute pleasure to present this topic today because it does have a tremendous value in the one thing that we all share in common, which is the most important thing to us, and that is our families and our relationships. And the thing that I will share about my background without getting too deep into it, because I really want to make sure over the next 20 minutes that we talk about how to accelerate your business success, to optimize how you're performing in the workplace with your fitness. And as far as my background is concerned, I graduated with an MBA and thought, okay, my goal now is to move into some sort of a consultant field. And I came out out of graduate school excited about that ambition. And while having that ambition, and for nearly 20 years, I had always kept fitness as a tremendous priority. And in fact, it had a couple of clients that I had been working with. And it's always been part of my plan to be able to have an impact in other people's lives with fitness at some capacity. But after graduate school, I moved into a company that did consulting. I ended up becoming a partner with a gentleman that had a compliance company, software in particular for mid-sized health practices. And into my 5th year of that business, I kept focusing on the transformative effects of the fitness journey with business executives in particular, because most of them were peers and people that wanted to make sure that was a priority. And I ended up getting to a point in my career where I looked back to really the best case scenario of my career, which could be to combine consulting with fitness. And so that's what I do is with XFit. And XFit is about reaching your genetic potential at any stage of life. And what I'd like to focus on as I work with companies, I'm often asked about how to navigate the fitness journey and to do so in different seasons of life, given that the business's number one objective is to continue to grow. And oftentimes people end up sacrificing their health because of the business's success. And the unfortunate thing is we then come home to our families, or we end up um, trying to invest into our relationships. And because we haven't invested enough into our health and wellness, oftentimes the tank runs pretty dry. And so in an effort to guide you through this journey, I want to just share just a couple of things about my personal fitness. So I started out in bodybuilding, and then as I evolved into becoming a husband and a father, I learned that I had to change my fitness. In fact, I'm in my 40s now. My wife, when I was 29, said, Lance, I just can't support bodybuilding competitions anymore. It's just so demanding. You have two daughters. We're going to have to explain someday to them about why you wear what you wear when you get up on stage and why this is such a priority. And I quickly realized that I needed to step back from that. And in my own evolution, I have created a simple nutrition framework and prioritized exercise throughout my life to be able to have what I think is a real optimized position with my health. And I find that that has been a tremendous advantage having kids grow up, because kids and later grandkids are going to demand, and indeed they do, all the energy that I can give them. So in a fitness journey, when we look at a fitness journey here at XFit, it's an interesting thing to look at all the different ways that people can be on a journey toward peak fitness in whatever the season of life is. And so the question I'd like to ask is, if you're in and can identify with a fitness journey and feel like there's been a priority, and you look at this path to this XFit peak fitness, step 1 through 3 could be a great way to build a foundation. And indeed, it helps a lot of people at least stay on track, being mindful. But after visualizing what an ideal body could look and feel like, and discovering some sort of a plan that can fit within the confines of your day in a life, often people will follow a guru of sorts, and they'll do the best that they to navigate things. But the reality is there's just a lot of confusion with fad diets and with sometimes the limits of what you can actually do with your body. And so, as Brian indicated earlier, I think it's instructive to think about some of the questions he posed about switching places with someone like Warren Buffett, or just thinking about the $1 million idea, but you die the next day. I have a client that when we started, he built a very successful business. And before we met, he mentioned that he had been out of the business for a couple of years due to the lack of being able to perform with the type of energy that needed to support his role in the business. And in fact, he began to get real chronic fatigue that would set in after lunch, and he was basically just not a functioning executive. And so he ended up selling his business to his sons, and then thought, well, okay, I'm going to move into this retirement phase. This is going to be weird. How will I adapt? Well, how he adapted to the pain that kept evolving into his body because of the weight gain and the chronic pain is he would sleep most of the day. And so his wife was suffering, and their grandkids were suffering from not only the pain when he was awake, but the pain of just not having a husband, a father, and a grandfather that was really present. And so the more we invest in our fitness, the more we are able to invest in our relationships. And so as you look at this journey, consider that what could motivate you could be to look at the step for, okay, let's set a fitness goal in 2025 that can be something that gets us a little uncomfortable. I talked to a man that said for him, he had to do something that was very disruptive in terms of creating this proverbial misogi, which is a term in Japanese that suggests becoming um, becoming one's best self because of the effort of transcending above wherever your state of being is. And so in that culture, some of the Japanese will go into waterfalls and they let this waterfall hit their back, and they find a waterfall that is, I mean, of course they're cold, but that is away from everything, so that they can meditate upon life and the experience that they're going through in life, and think about removing their their sensation of I guess you could call it pain or discomfort from the waterfall, and start becoming more present in what their body can do. And anyway, there's more. There's a book called The Comfort Crisis that I'd encourage anybody to read or listen to that can get through, that can talk through more of it. But when you're looking at setting a goal, this individual I was talking to said that he felt like he really needed to do something a little disruptive because he'd never done anything really disruptive. And so he decided that he would ride a bike across America. And I remember when he first said that, I just thought, absolutely, that is insane. And I put myself in a position to think, what would my wife Linda say if I was going to ride a bike across America? It would probably not be a favorable conversation. But for him and in his season of life and his profession, he was able to find a way to do that. And he did make it. And I won't talk to you necessarily about the takeaways, except for him, he said that experience, that journey that he took, was transformative mentally, physically, socially, spiritually. I mean, every aspect of life was changed for him. Wherever you're at, I'd encourage you to look at step 5, which is to look at maybe something that could be a next gear for you in your fitness. And you may consider learning about, let's say it's a 5K race. You may consider adopting maybe a schedule of a 5-day race that somebody has done, and then adapting that into your lifestyle. And that's the same with nutrition. If you hear about something like the Mediterranean diet, the ketogenic diet, the macro-based diet, there are a lot of fads out there. It may be that you consider giving that a try, adopting it, and then finding a way to adapt it based on your busy workload. And then there's always a group setting, and we found great success as we work with corporations. We often find that some of the best success comes when the corporation works together toward simple goals like walking, or imagine just having a goal to drink a certain amount as a group, and keeping each other accountable because of the impact of walking and water. And I'll get into some strategy around that in just a second. But what may get you going is booking a trip somewhere, or signing up for a fitness challenge, or even finding a way initially just to support someone else in their journey. As you move through a fitness journey, it's important to remember that results can be seen almost immediately. As you look in the top left, improved energy and boosted confidence. This is something I see almost instantly, especially when people do things as simple as just walking or drinking water. And that boosted confidence translates into so many other areas of life. Underneath that actually is where I probably should have started with day 1, but you have so many things that compound on each other. And just like we look at the market and we look for compounded interest, with every decision comes a compound effect, often internally, and then it scales over time. So measures of success, if this isn't something that's already on your mind, anytime people start a journey, there's this proverbial saboteur that often comes in. And the saboteur might say something like, hey, we've done this before, it hasn't been successful. Hey, you've got knee pain, there's all these reasons why the saboteur would want to stop us from getting out of our comfort zones. But I'd submit to you that if we look at a measure of success, maybe a little bit more than just the idea of getting this rock hard body, or running a 5K and getting the top place in whatever your age group is, maybe take a look at some of the things that I've highlighted, which is, hey, maybe you want to just look at when you go out and you eat at restaurants, maybe you have a little bit more of a structure around how you eat, or where you eat. Maybe you've picked a couple of places that are the 2 or 3 places that if you eat there, you're not going to overeat, or it's going to provide a higher quality score of nutrition. It may be disease rates. Maybe there's something in your family history that has been concerning, and maybe now it's creeping in. And so there's a lot here: posture improvement, being able to stay awake after your meals, reducing inflammation, confidence when you look at yourself in the mirror. And so being consistent then is certainly measuring your why and finding a way then to be very specific about what you're going to do. Again, if it's in a group setting as a corporation and water is a focus, having water bottles on your desk, maybe a corporate, a company branded water bottle that everybody kind of looks for to make sure that people are drinking water, because of the improvements that happen dramatically, actually, from just drinking water. And I can get into specifics if any of you care to message me individually about some of those. But consistency, it could be that you literally schedule things like eating lunch. It sounds ridiculous because our bodies sometimes will nudge us that it's time to eat. But often when we want to see a lot of business success and we want to meet goals, these are things that we often neglect. And so if a calendar notification is what you need to do, you'd be amazed how often that is one of the very first things. Also, finding a fitness partner, somebody that is someone that has a very similar outlook on what fitness might look like. Fitness is such a cultural thing. In our home, it is cultural. In so many businesses that I talk to, it has become more cultural, and it starts from the top down. And Brian is setting a remarkable example, especially because there have been some areas that, as we began to talk, that there were some blind spots. And so creating more awareness is a big part of why we're talking about this. There may be a fitness challenge that helps everybody. Again, there could be a step goal or a water goal, or maybe there's something that you all plan to do together. If you've seen The Office, you may find that actually having I think they did a 5K in the television show The Office. That might not be the fitness challenge for so many reasons that you do together, but having something that gets people moving. When we look at food as part of our fitness, the number one thing that I will hear is, well, just making the time is so difficult. How do I prepare food? It's over complicated, folks. And what I would suggest is that we look at some of these very simple recommendations. If you have a pressure cooker or if if you can get online and find that there are a lot of services that for $6 you can have meals delivered. And I have a lot of companies that will actually have meals delivered, and weekly they'll have so many meals that are just ready-made meals in the kitchen, and they're in containers, and so people commit to eating only what's in the container. If you're out at a restaurant or at a networking event and you don't feel like you have as much control, you may consider setting parameters like, okay, I'm going to eat half and then I'm going to save half, and I'm going to take that second half home. Also, you may consider, when I talk about batching your meals, one thing that often helps a lot of people is to make sure that when you're looking at your activity level throughout the day, that you're making sure that you have enough energy for the activities. And so before certain activities of the day, you're eating your breakfast, your lunch, and your dinner. You're making a conscious effort, realizing that that is actually going to fuel and optimize your performance. Now, it can be difficult to have things on hand, and so you may consider having this emergency toolkit. Maybe there are protein bars and almonds that you have in your desk. Maybe you have, if you're tired of water, on the very, very right, there's what's called True Lemon Water, or True Lime, if you like lime. Little packets that help you to enjoy water a little bit more. If greens are a difficult thing, there are greens powders. One of the things that we have on our side is we live in a time where there is more consciousness about eating healthy than ever before. And so restaurants will cater to healthier eating. Things that you can buy as supplements are less expensive than ever before. Now, I will just share one thing about a nutrition plan that I often get most of my clients on, and it's called the GPS meal plan. One of the productivity killers in a company is elevated glucose and elevated insulin. And elevated insulin, it's really a problem across America, to the extent that people are becoming desensitized because so much insulin is constantly running through the body. But if we look at our lunch meal that's coming up, and you'll consider a framework of eating greens first, protein second, and then your carbs at the end, science has shown that eating in a sequence like that and eating your carbs at the end allows certain hormones to release, such that you won't have as much insulin get into the blood as quickly, and consequently your body won't release as much insulin, and so therefore you won't have this energy crash that comes from too much glucose and insulin hitting the bloodstream immediately after lunch. If you'll give this one thing a try, this could be one of the greatest takeaways of your entire lives. Exercise is something, again, there are applications out there that you may consider taking a look at. The best step may be to take a fitness assessment just to kind of get a checkup on where body fat's at. Understanding blood work can also be helpful to understand where your triglycerides are at, and other things in your body that can help you to understand a direct correlation to current nutrition practices. If triglycerides are high, you could be getting too much fat and too much protein, and your body's not able to metabolize it fast enough. And so there could be some things here that could have some significant consequences down the road. If your blood feels sluggish, if we feel sluggish at any point, then it's likely our blood is sluggish, and that there could be a deeper root cause. That, again, getting a doctor evaluation, getting what's called an in-body 270 or 570 scan. Most gyms have what are called in-body scans to test body fat. A lot of scales have this. You may consider that your fitness assessment is just a belly button to belly button waist measurement. And sometimes progress pictures can be motivating or dissuading. Hopefully they should be motivating. So to conclude, I just wanted to wrap this up by just going through, again, some real simple steps wherever you're at in your fitness journey. Step one is visualizing where you want to be. And again, peak fitness is something that's different at every season of life. I love the quote that says, I love it on the mountaintop, but it is in the valley where I grow. I I think that anytime we get to a peak, we now find ourselves in a valley that is now giving us a chance to look to the next peak. So wherever you're at in your lives, whatever your fitness level, visualizing your ideal body and what it can do and what the next level of peak fitness can look like. It is such an individualized things. And I'd encourage each of you to, again, think through what your body's been able to do today for you and to look at just some small, simple actions that can have a significant compound effect and to look at muscle as an asset class of its own. Most of the time, when we look at the worldview of weight loss, that alone is more just calorie based, and it's a worldview on health. And that worldview is, if I eat certain calories, if I track my macros to get certain calories, I'm going to lose all this weight. But if you look at shows like The Biggest Loser, when they have dropped all these calories and they have now reached this proverbial fitness level, peak fitness level, the challenge with a lot of those folks is that metabolically, they're not able to sustain the weight loss because the asset classes of muscle have not been built as effectively. So, in all these things, remember that your fitness success is never owned. It is rented, and the rent is due every day. Thank you.
That was great, Lance. Thank you. I've just got some personal thoughts on this as well. One is, I always felt like committing to a diet would be really hard and really, really challenging to kind of navigate. I feel like the more I've got to know Lance and kind of how he helps people create not just significant change, but sustainable change in their lives. Just that simple GPS situation where if you've got a plate of food, you eat your salad first, right? And then you eat your protein and then you eat your carbs. Um, just doing that, just that one small thing, one will assure that you've got those three things on your plate, but then two will help you assure that metabolically and just the science behind how your body intakes that food, you'll have a better chance of getting what you need out of that meal. And so that's super easy, super simple, and then if you have kind of a list of things that are like, hey, in the greens category, here's what I can do. In the protein category, here's what I can do. And you can create some habits and helpful tips that will help you stick to that. Um, so the other thing that I feel like is super valuable here is just a group think and a group motivation in instigating change. Lance, you mentioned something in your conversation around raising our plane of thinking. Kind of it was something about the Japanese thing that you were talking about.
The Masogi.
The Masogi. Funny enough, Elevánt wealth, the word Elevánt comes from the Latin word elevare, which means to raise our plane of thinking. And
Okay.
and in our world, it's kind of, thinking beyond the products and services associated with finance, right? Like stocks, bonds, ETFs, mutual funds, insurance products, whatever it might be, real estate, anything like that. And raising our plane of thinking to what do we care the most about? And how can we align our use of capital or our use of our assets towards the things that we care the most about. And I think when we consider our fitness and our own physical assets, that we can do the same thing. If we want to travel a lot in our lives, especially in our retirement lives, if we're wanting to wrestle around with our grandkids on the ground, if we're wanting to take them to a beach and actually participate in what those kids are doing on the beach rather than just sitting there watching them, considering what do you care the most about and what is the legacy or impact that you want to leave, and aligning your use of your physical assets, the same as you would your financial assets, with those things, the things that you care the most about. And that rent concept is great. Rent comes due every day towards the goals that we want to accomplish. And so I appreciate your time, Lance, and
Absolutely.
motivation you've given me personally to just be a little better, and everybody on the call. So
That's very cool, guys. I certainly appreciate those comments. And as I approach this concept of financial planning and helping people, one of the things we always kind of focus in on are what are the risks. And we focus a lot on those financial risks. And I think from today we've learned the fact that without looking at the risk of not having our health, we're going to be missing out. And that, as Brian mentioned at the beginning, without our health, the wealth really doesn't matter. And so I guess our encouragement to each of you is to make sure that that risk in your life, that you're paying attention to it, using some of the things that Lance has pointed out, that maybe that means you need to reset some goals, or that you need to get a group or set some things that you want to accomplish in life. But take it serious. We'll help you out along the way and making sure that you're setting goals that are appropriate, and also make sure that we're meeting those goals from the wealth standpoint so that you can enjoy the things that you want. But again, Lance, thank you so much. We truly appreciate it. And to all of our customers out there, clients rather, we appreciate your trust and the confidence that you place in us. And as we transition into spring, we hope for an improvement in both in the markets and in the weather, and hopefully in your health continues. Next month, Elevánt Insights will take place on April 15th. Our guest will be Pete Eisenrich from Car Capital, who will help give us an insight as to what's going on in the markets. We'll have a first quarter behind us. And again, thank you very much, and we'll see you next month on Elevánt Insights.
Real quick, Dan, I wanted to give Lance a quick shout out. If you guys want to reach out to Lance, you can either call me, I can give you his info, or just xfitcoaching.com. And like he had mentioned, if you have any questions or want him to follow up on any of the benefits of his GPS program with greens, proteins, and carbs, or the water conversation, just anything from this call, I'm sure he'd be happy to chat with you. So thanks again, Lance, for your time, and we'll see everybody later.